So talk a little bit here about DBT. And we're not going to go into all of this. You know, like the honest truth is you could spend years on any one of these modalities, and you might choose to. You might say, wow, I really came out of this complex PTSD with this hunger to get more of one particular piece, or to get hungry about a few particular pieces. So with DBT, this is an integration of Zen Buddhism. It's Marsha Linehan's work. I have so much respect for her work. I think she has just offered a tremendous contribution to our field. If you're not familiar with it, it works with these primary dialectics, particularly around how radical acceptance is a necessary condition for change, which in Zen we're always working with those koans and those, like, how could change and self-acceptance actually kind of be so deeply related to each other. And also in DBT, we're working on building a lot of necessary skills in the domains of mindfulness and emotion regulation and distress tolerance and interpersonal effectiveness. And in mindfulness, we're building the capacity to observe experience and thoughts and emotions and somatic experience while cultivating non-judgment and greater self-acceptance. Acceptance is this recognition that uncomfortable experiences do not necessitate escape tactics or reactivity. In other words, we don't necessarily have to put our shoes on and run out of the room, right? And that ultimately we're aiming to cultivate what she calls wise mind, which is the optimal balance of thinking or reasonable mind. And again, we can play around with the words of that. And the feeling or emotional mind doesn't mean that it's non-rational, because what she recognizes is that the integration of logic and intuition can help you feel calm and centered. And we really need both. Right? We don't want to throw our emotions out the window, and we don't want to throw logic and mental capacity out the window. So it's a really beautiful model there. And you can just practice this one as I speak here, but she talks about and I love this particular practice, the half smile practice. It's a very soft half smile in a way that you can somatically create a state shift, a state change, by cultivating a state of serenity and softness in your face, a slight curling up of the sides of the lips, a slight curling up of the eyes, and we are activating our social nervous system. Right there. Okay. So when we pull in that social nervous system of pulling in that muscular action of the soft smile or the half smile, we are allowing that mind-body connection to travel all the way through. And these simple practices, she has another kind of mind-body trick, which is called willing hands. You familiar with willing hands? It's such a lovely, soft practice. And basically what she says is to just place your hands, I can show it seated, which is that it is especially a practice for when someone struggles with getting angry and going into reactivity. And she says when you feel that anger, turn your palms up, let your hands rest on your legs, or if you're standing, just let them rest by your side. And this willing hands, this soft hands, right? And to just allow yourself to go into a physical state of greater softness and submission, because this is particularly in the anger where it's non-necessitated, right? Where you've gone into defensive reaction that you don't want to act on because you're at the grocery store and the person gave you a funny look, and you immediately go into defensiveness, and you're like, you know what, I don't really need to fight this one, like this is not necessary. And so to go into that willing hand stance of saying, okay, and it can, again, just create this immediate mind-body communication of, I'm safe, it's okay to let down my guard. You can try this for those moments that you're sitting with a client where you go into your defensive reaction, and then if you shift your own stance into willing hands and just allow yourself to receive, let the moment just kind of wash by. Sometimes I just kind of imagine it a wave that goes by the side rather than into me, and I just become witness to it, and it can soften that dynamic in the room as well. And all of this is really in service of emotion regulation. The goal is not to get rid of emotions, it's to reduce the suffering that's related to ineffective reactivity to our emotions. And she helps us distinguish between our feelings and our action urges, right? We can reflect on our thoughts and emotions before we jump into the actions and behaviors. Difficult feelings are not destructive or the result of a bad attitude. These emotions are simply meant to be felt. All right. And here we're working towards the capacity of distress tolerance. Here, pain and distress are a basic part of life. They cannot entirely be avoided, right? Nor can stress, nor can trauma. I think, often when I work with clients who have trauma, I kind of joke around. I say, you're in the in club. You know that bad stuff happens out there. Those people out there who haven't experienced this, they don't know. They're naive, but you know. Which means that there's a responsibility that comes with that knowing. And it's a painful club to join, but you have a wisdom that comes along with this membership. And there's some people that can really be an empowering statement, that ultimately their capacity for distress tolerance is to know how to handle those painful emotions skillfully, to know how to handle that responsibility skillfully, and to distinguish between when do we need to accept reality as it is, and when do we need to focus on change, a little bit like our serenity prayer there, right? When do we need to leave an unhealthy situation, for example? And when do we need to come back and say, you know what, this is not dangerous, but it's not ideal. And how do I work with accepting this situation? We're also developing, interpersonal effectiveness. This is assertiveness, helping clients develop their capacity to ask for what they need and tolerate rejection. So, how many people stop asking for what they need because they're so afraid of getting told no, right? Or disappointing another person, experiencing rejection, any of those. And so we're building that capacity to tolerate those states so that we can be more effective out there in the world. And helping clients cope with conflict, learning to address conflict with wisdom, respecting themselves and others. Keeping their side of the street clean means, look, I can't be in charge of what the other person does or whether they decide to put their garbage out and let it roll all up and down the street. But I can at least know that my side of the street is clean. I can argue fairly, right? I can no longer use blame or name calling. I can at least be sure that I'm in integrity. And having healthy boundaries, which we've been speaking about. So in practice, what you can take back into your office is also just looking at some of the myths that that clients may have internalized about interpersonal effectiveness. I'm weak if I make a mistake. Is that really true? Because you're human, right? I can't make a request unless I know someone's going to say yes. Or if I ask for what I need, then I'm pushy, I'm bad, I'm selfish, I'm needy. Or saying no is selfish. Right? So we start to look at some of those myths that clients have internalized, and you can send them home if they want homework. You could send them home with those, and you could say, what would you like to be able to say to yourself when some of these automatic thoughts come up? We're going to spend a little bit of time on complementary and alternative medicine, and we will make our way through our final little segments of our time together. So kind of in brief here, what we're looking at is integrative healthcare, nutrition, massage, acupuncture, trauma-sensitive yoga, tai chi, qigong. We help clients to build a collaborative healing team when it's possible, maybe not in the jail, maybe not in your inpatient unit. I know we've got a lot of different experiences. Ron, I'm going to ask you to do me a favor since there goes the airplane. For those of you that are watching from afar, you may not know that periodically we have to pause for the airplane. But since I'm not going to check my email while I'm doing this, if any more questions come, would you alert me to them when they come in? Thank you. Do you know that they always seem to come in two? Oh. Okay. All right. Oh. We'll just wait for the airplanes to go by. Yeah, these are the military planes, very clearly, yeah. Okay, there might be one more, huh? Yeah, they come in, there's one more? Okay. There it goes. Okay, I think I can talk through the airplanes. What did you say, they're doing group therapy up there? Okay, military airplane group therapy in the sky. So, but it takes a village, not only to raise a child, but it takes a village to raise a child no matter what age you are, right? So, we're always working on recognizing that, yes, there are certain parts of self-care that we can do for ourselves, but we also really need other people. We're not islands. We're not meant to do all of this by ourselves. So we'll talk a little bit here about some of the science, once again, of the connection between trauma, early trauma, and inflammation and mental health. So what we spoke about yesterday in regards to cortisol is that we also recognize that cortisol has an inverse relationship with the immune system. So our high cortisol states, clients that spend a lot of time, or any of us, any human that spends a lot of time in high cortisol stress states, over time high cortisol can lead to the suppression of the immune system. And in contrast, low cortisol is associated with chronic PTSD, right? We talked about that yesterday, low available cortisol in the bloodstream because there's greater amounts of receptor sites on the cells. And low cortisol is associated with immunoenhancement, right? Because if we look at that healthy nervous system, the nervous system goes from we want the nervous system to progress between sympathetic and parasympathetic rather fluidly. We want to go back and forth between those states. But clients who experience either high chronic stress or chronic PTSD, they get stuck in either high cortisol or low cortisol states. Right? And so the cortisol, if it's stuck low, actually leads the immune system to be stuck in an on position, basically, and it's going to look for what can the immune system target. So let's take a closer look at these two states. Chronic stress, high cortisol is associated with blood sugar elevations, increased risk for type 2 diabetes. The blood pressure is increased, there's hypertension, heart disease, tendency towards food cravings, sweets, carbs, salt, vinegar, spices, sound familiar? And suppressed immunity. So associated, if the immune system is actually linked to cell death, if the immune system is suppressed, that is connected to cell growth, which leads to an increased susceptibility to cancer. I don't have his name on here, but this comes from the work of Bob Scaer, S-C-A-E-R. I think that if you look in your appendix of the references, I've got his book there, and he talks about this in there. The other side of this picture is chronic trauma, which is associated with low cortisols, or hypocortisolemia, kind of a long term for just meaning stuck in a low cortisol state. And here we're looking at an overactive digestive functioning, IBS, GERD, ulcerative colitis, interference with the circadian rhythm, poor sleep-wake cycle, right? And the immunity gets unchecked. When the immune system is functioning, it's basically going to look for sources of infection. It's going to look for where there's something to fight in the body. But if there's no virus, if there's no bacteria, if there's no infection, the immune system is going to go and start to target healthy tissue. The other person that speaks a lot about this is Yuri Bergman. He's also in your appendix. He's an EMDR therapist, but talks a lot about the neurobiology of trauma. And so he makes these connections between the medically unexplained symptoms, the immune system being unchecked, chronic trauma, and things like RA, Hashimoto's, thyroid, Graves' disease, lupus, Crohn's disease, fibromyalgia, chronic fatigue. And I think one of the key pieces about working with clients who have had the autoimmune condition turned on, when that gene switch happens, is that really we're not going to be able to go back and reverse that. At least typically that's pretty unusual. But what we can do is increase the amount of self-care that the person can do. We can increase the ability to manage symptoms, and we can certainly increase a lot of compassion. And the more that self-care comes into the picture, and the more that people are managing symptoms, the less that they're likely to have relapses or severe symptoms take over, such as with lupus and all of that. So the gut-brain axis is, we want to understand that there are neurons that line the stomach. This is called the enteric brain, and the intestines that communicate, and that communicates with our central nervous system. So actually people say that we have more neurotransmitters in our gut than we do in our brain. And that experience of feeling the gut wisdom or feeling the emotions in the body, having intuition, those experiences in the body, they're real. I mean, this is not just like woo-woo, as we say in Boulder. There's a lot of science behind this experience. And the microbiome, a whole nother world. Again, we could spend a week on that topic. It's so exciting right now, this understanding of the balance of the microorganisms that live inside of the human gut, and how imbalances are associated with depression and anxiety and panic and cognitive decline. Huge source of information out there right now, and I truly believe that we need to be knowledgeable about that as clinicians, because sometimes clients are coming in with symptoms of anxiety and they have an unidentified food allergy, and they're actually fueling their anxiety because of a diet that needs to be cleaned up in a way, because they're eating gluten and that's contributing to celiac, and they don't know that they have celiac, and they're making themselves sick, and we're trying to treat it as a psychological disorder, and there's actually a physical cause underneath it. So going and referring a client to go have a nutritional workup and be tested for food allergies can be really valuable, and clean up what we think might be years of therapy that actually could be addressed in a different way. So balancing the gut, balancing the brain. And again, this is going to connect into the vagus nerve as well. So I have a lot written on this. Some of you already know this about me, but I love to put information out there for free. I have probably, I don't know, about 80 to 100 blogs that are out there and available on my website. You're welcome to go check them out. You're welcome to share them with clients. This is one of them that you can find out there. It's about natural vagus nerve stimulation and teaching clients how to access their own social nervous system, regulating their parasympathetic and sympathetic nervous system states, learning how to use the breath, like that, slowing down the breath like we did yesterday, 4-count inhale and 4-count exhale, or humming, or the Valsalva maneuver is an interesting one. It's basically sometimes referred to as the diving reflex, but you inhale and then you force the exhale, but you don't let the breath go. So you're basically exhaling against a closed airway. You can try it here. Don't pass out. Breathe when you need to. But what you notice is that it increases the sense of pressure inside of the chest cavity, right? And that's just going to create a change of that influences vagal tone. And likewise, we change our vagal tone by coming into relationship. So when a client comes into our office, and through our eye contact, through proximity, through the voice tone, we're influencing each other. If a client has someone at home that they can go and have, contact with, a hug, skin to skin, again, really nice way of regulating the vagus nerve. For children that are very dysregulated, try time in instead of time out, and just being able to find a way to have a calming, holding, rocking, talk about that vestibular stimulation of balancing out the limbic nervous system, the limbic system of like rocking, or having a rocking chair that's set up as calming time when kids come home from school, or for kids that go transition between, two different households, having transition rituals that involve rocking is a way to help them settle into the transition. And then also working with self-acceptance practices. Tara Brock's work, and you can, again, she has tons of mindfulness practices that clients can access online, and they're really, really wonderful resources involving befriending the body, recognizing that not all symptoms can be changed, working with chronic pain or illness, and bringing loving kindness to oneself. Mindfulness in yoga, trauma-sensitive yoga has had a lot of research showing that yoga reduces autonomic sympathetic activation, reduces blood pressure, improves neuroendocrine activity, increased heart rate variability, and decreased reported symptoms of PTSD. So the principles of yoga for trauma recovery, this is the information that I use for the classes that I teach. I teach these several times a year in Boulder, and I do them as kind of time-limited sessions, usually about 8 weeks, and we cover the different principles. And what's really powerful about it is that people get to come together. Oh yeah, this is in your Appendix D? Appendix D, thank you. And so the principles of yoga for trauma recovery, the first one is to recover a sense of safety, here and now, right? So if there's an opportunity to refer clients for this, or you can go train and become a trauma-sensitive yoga teacher if this is something that jazzes you. But the emphasis is on no mirrors, the inner experience versus the outer look of a posture, and a language of invitations versus directives. It's all a practice of making choices, and choices about empowerment, explore body, breath, movement, whether eyes are open or closed, whether you want to be seated or laying down, whether you want to participate in the posture or not. There is no right or wrong. We help clients set an intention for the practice. It becomes a container. It helps focus mindset and emotional tone. The way that I offer this class is that people practice in community, and so we come together in a small group, usually about 6 people, and we're sitting in a circle, and we share those intentions with each other. We also share just a little brief check-in so that we're getting to weave in back as members of community, because remember, trauma doesn't happen in isolation. It happens as an interpersonal experience, and therefore I really feel that we need to heal trauma as an interpersonal experience as well. So we're repairing the wounds of feeling exiled, feeling like we don't belong, and with an intentional space. There's not crosstalk in this sharing, in this community. People share, and people simply just respond by saying thank you. And that feeling of being welcomed, and nobody's going to tell you that you're wrong. Nobody's going to tell you that you shouldn't have had that experience. Sorry. Let's stick on this one here. So the next principle is nervous system flexibility. So here we're looking at increasing tolerance for sympathetic and parasympathetic states, right? So we're working with the breath to reclaim nervous system flexibility, and we're working with a balance of effort and ease, so that some postures in yoga involve much more active, right, like warrior two, and some are much more calming, like child's pose, right? And to know that we want to kind of go back and forth between something that's going to get the heart rate up and moving, and then go into something where we can reclaim a sense of calm, so that clients who maybe are stuck in their sympathetic nervous system know, oh wow, I can mobilize and then I can come back down and relax. Or I can go into an active practice and then settle down into an extended yoga nidra practice or yogic sleep. We're also balancing effort needs. I said that we're up-regulating and down-regulating so that clients have tools to know how to work with their own nervous system states. We're cultivating equanimity, that we're connecting to grounding, connecting to senses. Equanimity is defined as the ability to stand in the middle of all that. Right? So that when the world is swirling around and all of these things are happening and the kids are screaming and everything feels out of control, that you can come back and find your center and find that place. In yoga, we talk about the ability to find sukha or sukhasana. Sukhasana is just an easy sitting pose. Sukha is translated as the axle that sits in the middle of the wheel, the wagon wheel, right? And if we're stuck at the edge of the wheel and we're rolling around and we're going to get run over at some point, right? But if we're in the center, in the sukha, the axle, it allows all of that to spin around and we get to actually come back into that still center, right? Or you can stand at the middle of the hurricane if you like that metaphor better. And so all of the stuff might be moving around you, but that you can be in that eye and you can find that place of calm. So we're building dual awareness strategies even in yoga, where sometimes we might put as an intention at the top of the mat to work with something painful or difficult that happened, but then we come back with intentionality to movement and being in this moment and really recognizing that that doesn't have to define us. And we're awakening instinct and intuition so that a posture becomes a secure base for intuitive movement. Yesterday when we were doing that movement of the 5-point check-in and then regulating and responding, that's a lot of what this yoga looks like, is that you might choose a posture and then let your body move however it wants to move, right? So if we're, kind of in tabletop, which we're not going to do here together, but if you're on your hands and knees and then you just allow yourself to find out how your body wants to move. And I love it because some of you are just moving in your chairs like, oh, that looks good. I'm going to stretch and move. Remember, you don't have to sit still. We're sequencing frozen or truncated movements out endpoints right here through the yoga. I had one gal that came up to me who was in my general, I also teach just a general drop-in yoga in Boulder for the general public, and she came to me and she said that she had been through a traumatic experience and that for her, if yoga didn't have some real active postures like warrior postures, that it didn't give her the same effect if she was just going to go and do a restorative class, that she really needed those active postures to help calm her mind. It really just depends on the individual. Some people need much more of a restorative practice, and some people need more of an active practice to find that balance. And the last principle here is transformation and awakening, so that we're practicing in what I call the transitional space between the person that you are, or the person that you have been, and the person that you are becoming. Right? And that we stand in what we call liminal space, or standing at the edge of what's known and what's unknown. Right? Because tolerating the unknown is can feel so overwhelming, especially when trauma, which is a source of unwanted change, has come into your life, that to choose more change on top of that can feel really frightening. I just want to find something that I can hold on to that I know. So to be able to reclaim a relationship to the unknown and to change, or to kind of transformation in a way, can feel scary again. It can feel like, oh no, something bad is going to happen once again, because you're in the in club. You know that that's possible. And so then we want to brace against it. But ultimately we want to find ways to recognize that we're always changing, and to be able to kind of trust yourself that you can handle what comes your way. So, whoa, why are you going so fast? Come back. All right, so we'll do a little practice here together in gratitude. First, I'll just want to name that there are tremendous research on the benefits of maintaining a gratitude journal. And Berkeley has a Center for Greater Good. If you're not familiar with it, it's a cool resource out there. They have a lot of their research out online. This is University of California at Berkeley. And a lot of their research is on the use of gratitude and the influence on positive mood and feeling greater connection to others and better sleep and more optimism and fewer physical symptoms and so forth. So what they also have found in their research is that even if it is difficult to find something to be thankful for, the positive results are actually associated with the act of remembering to look for something to be grateful for. So I think that's pretty cool. So for just a brief moment, let's do this together, because why not, right? Find a comfortable seat. You get to choose whether your eyes are open or closed. Allow your awareness to move inside your body, becoming aware of your breath and your sensations. And what do you notice? And now I invite you to think of one thing that you are grateful for today. This can be something very simple, from a cup of tea that you're holding, or grateful for a person in your life that you love or that loves you. Grateful for the clothing on your back. Grateful for this earth that holds us. Maybe one good thing that happened this week. And now notice your experience of being grateful. What are you thinking? What are you feeling in your body? What emotions arise? And then for a moment, allow yourself to extend this feeling of gratitude throughout your entire body. Good. And you are welcome to continue that on your own.